All right, JT.
Okay.
Um, so I just have a few questions for you about Outlast. Kind of like Victoria said, it's going to be mostly about the game, the design of it, the overall story between all the games, and then also um, a little bit about the movie and then the big hook for it is, I guess, I, my fiance and I were looking at hotels to put our guests in for our wedding, and one of the hotels
Uh-huh.
in Buffalo was the Richardson Hotel. And as we saw that, she said, "I know that hotel," and she thought about it, and she was like, "How do I know that hotel?" And
Yeah.
played Outlast. And so then I was like, "All right, I got to play Outlast." And so I played Outlast, and I guess it's awesome. And
Thank
also
you.
it involves, a historic Buffalo building. So I was like, oh, I could do a story on that because like I don't know, I didn't know that there was a historic Buffalo building in the game. And so it was very cool. And the game was very cool. And then I haven't played any of the games since then, but I've read a bit about them, and I just think the whole development of it is very it's such a cool concept for a horror game. And I guess the first question I have is, as far as inspiration goes, what inspired you to write it? And then in terms of as you're writing it, what other pieces of art do you draw inspiration from?
So the by the time I got involved with Outlast, Phil and Hugo and David, the founders of the company, had sort of the basic pieces in place.
Oh.
Like the they knew they wanted it to be about man, and this is all 17 years ago now, so or maybe 15 years. My memory is not great. But honestly, I mean, the first thing that they told me about Outlast was that it was going to be a game where you almost never get to fight back.
Mhm.
And then when we eventually made the game, it turned into never are able to fight back. So, all your options are to run or to hide, or to die violently and horribly. But for me as a storyteller, that's incredible because uh, in all the time I've been writing video games, I've never really been a big fan of cinematics, right? We have to like stop and watch a movie before you're allowed to play the game again. Um, and but the issue with that is that if you're telling a story inside the game, you'll spend all this time writing dialogue and figuring out these characters and getting these dynamics of NPCs, and then somebody comes in and is just like and everybody gets headshot and you miss all that story. But if you're hiding under a bed trying not to be murdered, then you have to sit there and listen to what the characters are saying to each other. So it was like sort of a great opportunity to, build some characters.
And now, as a reporter, I thought it was very cool that the character was a reporter. Like I just thought, like the investigative aspect was very cool, and I thought, yeah, I thought the not being able to fight back was so unique because I'd never played a game where you weren't allowed to, even sports games, right? If you're playing Madden, you hit somebody, right? This is
Yeah.
like the first time I can really think, other than like very games geared toward kids, where it's like, oh, you don't fight anybody, you just kind of when
Yeah. And
then
then we made Outlast, finally a game for the kids, right?
but I guess when yeah, no violence. Well, no violence on your end as the protagonist. But I guess what challenges did that present in terms of writing around no violence?
Yeah, well, I will say to having a reporter character, I've tried, I work in movies and TV as well. I've tried to get two movies made about reporters, and I've had executives say to me outright, nobody cares about reporters. Like those movies always fail, which is incredible and weird. But so so it was an awesome opportunity to get to write about one. But the challenge of writing without the main character being able to do any violence to anybody, I think is it's all opportunity,
Mhm.
right? Like because you can't resort to violence. And
Right.
I honestly think that like all the violence in video games, like a lot of that is just because we're stuck with buttons, right?
Mhm.
Like it's hard to have a button that gets you through a conversation, but a
Right.
button maps really well to a jump or a punch or a trigger. Um, and so really it was just about stripping abilities away from a player. But
Mhm.
what that leaves you with is is a very rich world, right? Because like all of the so much of the storytelling in video games is forensic, where you
Yeah.
have to look around a room and just say like, "Oh Jesus, what happened here?" And that encourages you to explore, and that helps you solve the puzzles and sort of work your way through the game. And so for a story like Outlast, we always wanted to have the player character walking into a situation where everything horrible you think has just happened, right? You're walking into a crime scene or, just after a massacre. So you're in this terrible place and and you're trying to figure out what happened, and then you find out in the worst possible way.
Yeah. And I thought that's really like it was such a unique experience as the player, like to have to go through, especially with a horror game, because I myself I'm not great with horror a lot of the time, even movies.
Uh-huh.
So being in the game and just I don't know, it's tough because it's like, oh, I can't even hit this guy. So yeah, again, I
Yeah.
loved that experience, that challenge because it's not like anything, and I just thought that was such a really cool aspect of that.
Like what I love, like when you talk about like watching horror movies, anytime you're sitting in a movie theater with somebody or in a movie theater, you're watching a movie and like somebody's going to go check out the basement. And everybody in the theater is like, "What are you doing? Don't go in the basement. The guy's a fucking idiot. I would never do that." And Outlast takes that away from you. So
Mhm.
suddenly you're the person in control at the top of the stairs. And you could say I'd never go into the basement, but you're pushing the stick that takes you down into the basement,
Right.
right? So
You get
like
the elevator
you're
at the end and then it just takes you down anyway.
exactly. You're doing
Ah,
everything that everybody in the theater is saying you shouldn't do,
right.
which is fun. Can I curse? Do I have to stop
I don't
cursing?
care. I'm not pressed.
Okay.
It's all good.
All right.
And now design wise, what goes into the creating this world for a horror game and making it scary? And I'm going to get to the asylum in a minute here, but like I guess
Mhm.
in terms of creating this entire world, what goes into that?
Um, I mean, there's a lot that goes into making the game. The very first game we made with a very small team, so everybody was wearing a lot of hats. I mean, in the core team, it was less than a dozen people. As we've gone on, we've gotten bigger, but it's always super collaborative, right? I mean, like with this one, the three founders, Phil, Hugo, and David, sort of have the big ideas, and they start to come up with notions of like what the gameplay is and what it's going to feel like, and then we work together and come up with a story. Then I'll write the script, and then that's going to get revised over and over again as the game design comes and takes shape, and then people figure out how that's going to be an actual level, and there's a lot of back and forth, right? Like, so I've got whatever my agenda is. The level designers are trying to make a good level. I'm trying to make the characters as interesting as possible. So we're all sort of like going back and forth and negotiating, like, well, if this thing is here and there's evidence of what happened over here, um, and I generally try to stay out of the level designer's way. Like I think if you've got a great story but it doesn't function as a game, you kind of like you have the medicine but not the delivery device.
Yeah.
And I'll like there's a lot of people who probably play games and don't care about the story that much. And I don't want to get in their way. And I also feel like it's more interactive if you have to kind of dig a little bit. Like
Mm.
it's a lot of the conversation about or a lot of the storytelling I would say on Outlast is happening on YouTube, where people are playing the games and figuring out the connections and like digging through the documents and sort of putting everything together,
Right.
which I just love to watch.
Yeah. As far as the design goes, the Richardson was chosen. It used to be Buffalo State Asylum. How did that come into play?
I mean, I honestly don't know a whole lot about the Richardson, the whole Olmsted complex. I think it was just a cool looking asylum. It was from, the right time period. It's just like uh, it's an intimidating looking building.
Yeah. And I guess the architecture of that building, like how did it lend itself to Mount Massive?
Um, so I only know my from my limited research on Richardson, like from the time period that it was built, right? Like I think
Yeah.
it's pretty shortly after the Civil War,
It was,
but
yeah,
like
like
I
late 18, like 1870s, I think.
Okay, yeah. So like late 19th century. I think that was like when all the veterans came back or not came back, came out of the Civil War.
Hmm.
Um, right? Like they were fucked up, and it was the first. It was a big time when I believe America was trying to figure out, can we actually build specific facilities for the mentally ill, right?
Right.
Like before then, a lot of mentally ill people were ending up in debtor's prison or just jail or worse, right?
Hmm.
And so there was like an attempt to institutionalize mental health, but it resulted in buildings that have, wings for specific things and hydrotherapy and sort of all of these notions. And that's very friendly to game design, right? Like we can have the male ward and the female ward and the different administrative sections and sort of have the organization that goes for a video game. But honestly, I mean the most honest answer is just that like it's a really cool looking building.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's scary. It looks good in the moonlight.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing some research on the architecture and stuff itself, and just like the Romanesque style and how many asylums had like a similar style back then, and just it's the guy who designed it, H. Richardson, one of like the big three architects in America, and just you know, I don't know, like you said, it's very intimidating looking. It's a cool building, and yeah, like when I started playing, I was like, wow, this is like a really good look for the game. And even it's like there's moments where like you get like you go outside a window and you're hanging on the ledge and it's like it's just like all the details there. And I was like, that's so cool. Like it
I
was
mean, so much like the whole team is great, but so much of that is Hugo Dallaire, who's the art director and one of the founders of Red Barrels. And I've been working with him since I think Batman Vengeance was the first game we made back in like 2000 possibly, but he did Splinter Cell. Like he's a brilliant designer, and like everything he does is gorgeous.
awesome. Now, there's the sequel game still focuses on reporters. This time it's closer to Arizona, like in the desert. How did you kind of stick with that like area of the United States for this to happen? How did that um kind of the Southwest?
Yeah. Yeah, for Outlast 2, we wanted it to have connections to the first one, but not immediately apparent connections. We wanted to have a cult situation. The desert felt correct for it, just because it is a very it feels like a place that God interacts with, right? Like it wants to be remote and primal and out there,
Right.
and sort of being nestled close to Colorado without actually being there.
Right.
Just felt right. I also it was also just like the landscape of that part of Arizona is very specific and very otherworldly, and lets us get into sort of the desert and then the ravines and then the canyon. Like it had the correct journey of the spaces we need.
Awesome. And then the Outlast Trials is the multiplayer prequel, and it's I don't know. What was the decision to make it multiplayer and like allow like getting away a little bit from the isolation of it?
Um, yeah, I mean, partly, partly, I think the Red Barrels guys are just like always looking for a challenge, right?
Mm.
Like how many times can you retread the same ground?
Yeah.
And I really like that we got away with making Outlast 2 such a distinctly separate experience from the first Outlast.
Yeah.
Um, and with Trials, going back to the late 50s, early 60s, and like all the origins of the MK Ultra kind of CIA mind control cultural stuff that we were talking about as the background for the first game
Yeah.
felt really correct. Um, but yeah, and honestly, I mean, you'd have to talk to the Red Barrels guys, but like, I think partly they just liked the challenge of it, right? Like it's such a different kind of horror experience.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not sure. I mean, I love the format of storytelling in a multiplayer game like that, because all the stuff we were talking about in terms of like forensic storytelling and hiding so many of the narrative elements for players to discover
Right.
is just that much more explicit in a multiplayer game. And time can keep rolling forward, so that like we're tracking history from the late 50s to the early 60s in the story of the trials and trying to weave that into how Outlast Trials is rolling towards the events of everything else that's coming. Um, it's just really fun.
And now there's a film on the way as well. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, we have a movie set up at Lionsgate.
Nice. And is that focusing on any characters we already know, or is that its own separate story?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like it definitely it's always been important to me that the entire Outlast universe all is the same timeline.
hmm. Okay.
So everything ties together. I am going to be necessarily cryptic about it.
That's completely understandable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there anything else that I haven't asked that you would like me to know about Outlast or the design or the writing or anything in between?
Um, Man, I don't think so. It is wild to me how large Outlast has gotten,
Mhm.
right? Like I thought I was getting into like some old buddies that I had made some games with 15 years ago called me and were like, "Hey, do you want to make a horror game?" And like and my entire game writing career has been very, big franchises and licensed stuff. And so to like get to do something else original in video games and be horror, because like unlike you, horror is so much of what I do. Like horror movies are like my comfort food.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just like it was such a pleasure to do that and then to be here. But yeah, I can't think of anything else. No, if there's something I want people to know in Outlast, I'll like hide it in a code in a document and I'll put it somewhere deep in the game and figure nobody ever finds it.
There was a lot of stuff I did miss that even afterwards I was like reading up and I'm like, oh, that's so like there was something like an Evil Dead reference in the game. Like
Yeah.
chainsaw, yeah.
Yeah.
That
No,
was
we're all horror nerds from way back. So there's a lot of the jokes.
love that. All right. Well, JT, I appreciate you again taking the time today. That was awesome talking to you and yeah, I'll send over the article when it's all sent.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good day.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye.